The Night House is a horror movie directed by David Bruckner and released in 2021. Before this movie, David Bruckner participated in one of the VHS movies and directed The Ritual, which was a very indie and very niche movie which was very well received by fans of the genre. And he also directed the 2022 Hellraiser reboot, which personally I really enjoyed. The short synopsis for The Night House would be: Beth is a woman and a teacher who lost her husband after he took his own life. However, Beth's grieving process doesn't go smoothly since she starts experimenting terrifying and paranormal happenings shortly after the funeral. This leads Beth to investigate more about her late husband, discovering a gruesome secret. The movie begins with a very somber montage of an empty dollhouse. We see used tissues, a mess everywhere, and it becomes clear it is the house of a couple. Yet, only one person comes home, Beth. We promptly understand she just became a widow. As we get one of the first establishing shots of the movie, it is one that really caught my attention. We see Beth on one of the sides, practically in the corner, while the other half of the frame is empty, like something should be or will be happening on that other half. But nothing happens. It's just Beth and the emptiness. It is a very lonely shot, exactly like I would imagine coming back home after losing your partner must feel like. Every space is too big, too empty, too lonely. Beth then throws away the food she was gifted and we cut to the title screen. We move on. Now Beth has a cup of wine in one hand and a folded paper in the other. She proceeds to drink more and watch old videos of her wedding. Later that night, she is in bed, but she cannot sleep. She's just contemplating the empty space next to her on the bed. But right when a sob is going to leave her mouth, a knocking starts going on. She goes downstairs, visibly agitated. I mean, it must be terrifying to live alone in a big house in the skirts of a lake, if you ask me. Beth checks everywhere, but she sees no one. She steps outside to keep investigating, and as the door to her side closes, there is a shadow of a man in the reflection. Beth then slams the door, revealing that no one was there. The next morning, Beth wakes up on the floor of her husband's studio, and she has to quickly get ready to go to work. No real time to grieve as life keeps going on. As she is making her way to the car, she sees one of the doors that lead to the deck of the lake is swinging open. So she hurries to put it in place, and so she sees a couple of muddy footprints on the wood. She follows them, the prints becoming more clear the closer she gets to the lake. And once she makes it there, she sees that the direction of the footprints are not going from her house to the lake. But it seems like someone exited the little boat on the side and then went upstairs to her house. But like I said, Beth gives no time for grieving and heads to work. We see Beth is a teacher, and as she is alone in her classroom going through her laptop, she is watching the house market, most probably thinking about selling her house. She stares at the photo of her and her husband standing on her desk, and she slowly starts dozing off. Then a knock on the door wakes her up. Another woman coming into the classroom. Beth nods at her, and when she sees the computer screen, the page with the house market is gone. And now, instead, there's a page with guns for sale. The woman who came into the classroom is the mother of one of Beth's students. She is there because she is unsatisfied with her son's grades. Beth quickly checks and confirms that Hunter, her kid, got a bad grade because he did not do a presentation, so he missed the assignment. The mother informs Beth she is aware, but that she is also aware Beth had told her son he could redo the presentation on Thursday, but when he came she wasn't there. Beth confirms this and says she couldn't be there because of personal matters. Till this point, Beth has stayed professional. But then the mother of the kid says that it doesn't excuse her not being there since all of them have personal matters. That is when Beth straightforward says to the woman that her husband shot himself in the head. He took a boat to the lake and shot himself through the mouth. The woman stutters, claiming she didn't know. And Beth then repeats, "Yeah, because that is a personal matter." The woman ends up apologizing, and Beth simply puts a B as the new grade for the kid. The woman gives her condolences to Beth, and very shaken up, she leaves the room. Once alone, Beth grabs the photo of her husband and throws it into a drawer. We move to a videotape of Beth filming Owen when they were building their house. Beth stops the tape, throws them in a box, and begins to collect all of Owen's things into a trash can, slowly but surely moving on. Or at least, it seems like she is trying to move on. During this cleanup, she finds the book where Owen recapitulated all of his plans for their house. And as she goes page by page, the drawings of the house stop, and she starts finding drawings of mazes with little notes as "trick it, don't listen to it." Like Owen was building mazes as to confuse something. But specifically, to build a maze under their house. That's when Beth finds the reverse house plans. Confused, Beth closes the book. Now, here is where I need to intervene. The thing is that Beth is not only confused, she is angry. Apparently, there were many things that she did not know about her husband, many secrets Owen decided to keep from her. Night arrives again, and while Beth is asleep, the stereo turns on its own and a song begins to play very loudly. And then she gets a message from Owen's phone telling her to calm down. Beth quickly types back asking who is it. In response, she gets a "don't be afraid," and then the music comes to a stop. For me, this was the most chilling scene in the entirety of the movie. Beth decides to call the number, and surprisingly, whatever is on the other side of the line picks up. Among static, there's Owen's voice, and he asks Beth to look out the window. Beth does, and what she sees is Owen naked, standing on the water. Beth then wakes up on the bathroom's floor. She goes straight to her phone, checking her conversation with Owen, but none of the texts sent last night are there. It's like she dreamt about it. She decides to go to the car and check inside the box where all of Owen's things were gathered after he exited himself. She finds the gun on a bag and she puts it aside, going for his phone. She checks. There's no messages sent from that phone, confirming for her that she might have dreamt what happened. She begins to go through his photo gallery, reminiscent of their life together. Till she finds a photo of a woman giving her side to the camera. At first, Beth smiles, thinking it's her. But then she realizes the woman on the photo looks a lot like her, but it isn't her. Beth goes to her friend Claire with the picture, and when Beth asks what does Claire sees, she declares a picture of Beth. Beth corrects her, telling her to look closer. Claire tries to comfort Beth, saying that finding a normal picture of a woman in his phone is not the worst thing a woman can find in her husband's phone. She also tells Beth she shouldn't be making up stories since Owen is not there to explain or defend himself. For all they know, Owen didn't take the picture. Claire really cares for Beth, and she keeps going, telling her there is no use in questioning the past, and that she should just remember her Owen, the Owen who was her husband and she fell in love with. Claire then changes the topic and invites Beth to have drinks with her and some other workers. At the bar, the conversation among the group is a regular one. They are just gossiping about workers and stuff. That's when Beth asks if they believe in ghosts, because she believes that there is something in her house. Obviously, everyone at the table tenses up. They are aware Beth is in a sensible position, and no one knows how to respond to the question. Beth explains a bit of her situation, and one of their co-workers says that Beth spent 14 years married to Owen, that it is normal to feel like he is there even when he is not. Then the same friend asks Beth if she was really not aware that there was something going on with Owen. Beth says no, that usually it was her, the one who struggled with her mental health, not Owen. And now since Beth is letting them go deep into the topic, another friend gets the courage to ask if maybe Owen left a note. Beth says yes and takes it out of her purse. She carries it with her. She reads it without hesitation. The note says, "You are right, there's nothing. Nothing is after you, now you are safe." After that, Claire takes Beth home. Beth offers Claire a drink, but she declines, insisting Beth should not have a drink either, and orders her to go upstairs to her bedroom. Beth says no, that she is sleeping in the couch. Claire doesn't fight her, respecting her wishes, and then offers to stay the night. Beth tells her no, that she has her keys waiting for her at home. Beth then reveals she lied about the letter. She does know what it means. Apparently, at 17, she was in a car accident and her heart stopped for 4 minutes. After she made it back and woke up, she told people she didn't remember what it was like. But she says she does remember, but didn't want to disappoint anyone by telling them that there was nothing. Beth lays her head on Claire's lap, closing her eyes as Claire pats her head, and she keeps rambling about how Owen and her used to argue about the topic. This till she falls asleep. And in a seamless moment, Claire is no longer there with her, and Beth is woken up by a horrible sound that is shaking her entire house. Beth gets up and goes outside, ready to search for whatever is haunting her. We get a strange sequence where different women run past Beth and into the lake. She tries to follow them, but she stops when she sees her house from the other side of the lake. Then a voice guides her into the boat, and she follows. Everything turns red, and Beth wakes up and walks back home. Beth enters her home. Now is daytime. The camera pans, and Beth wakes up from the couch as the door of the house opens by itself. Beth knows there's definitely something more. So, she goes into her laptop and starts going through Owen's phone folder. There she does not only confirm the woman in the photo she initially found is not her, but she finds pictures of many other women who look like her in one way or another. Beth decides to take a hike, looking for the house she was sure she had seen the night before. In this walk, she meets with her only neighbor who quickly states she shouldn't be alone hiking. She should be with her family and friends. He is obviously worried about her mental health. He even offers her that she can have lunch at his house. Politely, Beth declines and keeps doing her research. As she goes, she finds a tree with a very specific carving, and following its lead, she finds a construction. She goes inside to inspect, and she ends up finding a weird statue of a person being practically tortured. Beth runs out of the place and goes to meet Melv, her neighbor. She knocks the door desperate, and as soon as he asks, she demands him to tell her about the statue. Melv says he has no idea, but Beth calls bullshit. He says he saw Owen walking the same path she was at earlier. He was with a woman, and Melv thought it was Beth, so he approached them. And then he saw Owen with another woman. Melv assures Beth that was the only time he saw him with someone else. However, one night, Owen went to his house drunk and with mud all over him, saying he had certain dark urges he needed to release. What urges? Melv didn't dare to ask. He saw Owen and Beth together, happy as always, and decided not to say a word to her. Beth goes back to her house and starts rampaging through all of Owen's possessions, searching for answers. And that's how she finds a book with the title Care Droya. One of the pages reads, Decoys and Deceptions, and it is marked up and there is a drawing of the statue Beth found earlier. A line is highlighted, saying the statue or artifact needed offerings, and then another reads something about reverse spaces and mazes. Beth closes the book, taking in everything she has learned in one day. But then she looks again, finding information about where Owen bought the book. Beth goes to the library, looking for any information about the purchase, but the guy at the register informs her that they do not keep track of who buys what or when. And while she is there, she catches one of the women she saw in Owen's photos. So of course, Beth approaches her. And as expected, she comes off a bit aggressive, starting to ask how the woman knew her husband, Owen. The girl tells Beth that Owen used to go there a couple of times a year, and sometimes they flirted. And eventually they went for drinks, but nothing happened ever. We move to Beth now with Claire. She tells her about the encounter she had with the girl and how there's photos of other women in Owen's phone. But apparently, Owen wasn't having affairs with these women. So Beth is confused as of what the hell Owen was doing then. Then, she tells Claire about the dream she had where her house was backwards and Owen was there. But Claire stops her, arguing that whatever she is doing is not good for her. They chit-chat a little bit more about the topic and Claire offers Beth to stay with her and get away from her house for a bit. Beth declines, so at least Claire reminds Beth that Owen is gone, but she's still here and she still has her life. Beth leaves and Claire quickly adds an I love you there, which Beth doesn't say back. Claire can clearly see something is not right with Beth. Back home, Beth receives a visit by the same girl she confronted at the bookstore. And when asked how did she knew where Beth lives, the girl reveals that she has been there before. The girl explains Owen had her holding the strange statue and then hugged her and started crying. So she kissed him and he kissed her back. But it escalated to the point he began squeezing her neck. Eventually, he drove her home and apologized, saying it was all his fault. As soon as the girl leaves, Beth goes into the other house to investigate, losing her mind a little bit more, sure something else is going on. And as she is walking around, she breaks one of the floorboards and her feet sinks. She takes it out, and what she discovers is several bodies of dead women inside plastic bags. Beth runs back home and calls Claire in a panic. She basically says Claire was right and that she should not have been looking because now she found something she refuses to believe has to do with Owen. Beth goes to take a shower, and in the middle of it, the music turns on in the house. She hurries around searching for anything, and then she finally loses it. She breaks down crying, saying she doesn't understand and that she misses him so much. As she raises her head, she sees the word "here" written on the bathroom's mirror. She raises it, turns around, and sees the footprint of someone else on the floor. Beth approaches the entity and starts to feel it. Believing it's Owen, she hugs it, and she lets the entity hug her, taking in the moment she has been longing for so long. But as she says Owen's name, the entity reveals that it is not Owen. Beth breaks off from the spell, but the door closes, trapping her in the bathroom. And when she turns around, the woman in the reflection of the mirror is not her. She sees Owen coming in and starts to strangle the woman, and then throwing her into the mirror. Then, the entity grabs Beth from the neck too and crushes her against the glass as well. When she manages to collect herself, she realizes everything is backwards in her house. Owen appears in the bedroom, tying down a woman on the floor. Then, on the side, there is like a shadow of a man, which begins moving towards her. Beth runs away, finding another memory of Owen, who is preying on yet another woman. The shadow man appears again and it manages to catch Beth. She is dragged along the house, seeing the women Owen killed. Beth ends up in a room with a man that looks like Owen and is caressing her hair as in another version of him. The man tells Beth that she left him after the night they met. He is referencing the time Beth died. During that moment when she saw nothing, he was there, but Beth didn't stay dead, so he has been looking for her. Owen has been killing women who look a lot like Beth, trying to trick this entity, which we can assume is death itself, or at least an entity that lives in that limbo between death and life. Beth is submitted by the entity and she's folded into the same position as the little statue. Beth then is sitting in the little boat right in front of Owen. She asks where is Owen, and the man says, "Gone, but you already knew that." This entity almost convinces Beth to go with him, basically convincing her to unalive herself the same way Owen did. But while this is happening, Claire had arrived at Beth's house, and she was right on time to jump into the lake and take out Beth from the trance she was in, and they saved her. Now, it's time we get into the nitty-gritty of the story. Obviously, this is a story that talks about the grief of losing someone and how that can make someone lose their mind. In the story, instead of letting go and starting what is called the duel or healing process, Beth holds on to whatever she could to feel like Owen was still there with her, even though she knew deep down he was gone. Making herself so vulnerable, she almost followed Owen into the afterlife. And with this, I don't only see someone overcoming grief, but guilt, which is very common when someone so close to us do something like this. Especially in Beth's case, where the victim was her husband, the person who she slept next with. Losing someone under these conditions can cause an enormous guilt, a guilt that can eat us alive. And beyond grief, in my opinion, Beth's search for the truth behind her husband's action has to do with easing the guilt of how and why I did not notice something was wrong. What did I miss? And it is more common than you think that the people who lost someone through suicide will eventually leave this world in that same way thanks to that guilt. And this movie really struck me because of this. I did not only see the grief metaphor, but I also see the journey of someone going through this duel, especially because Beth was the closest person to Owen. I understand fake Owen can be seen as death itself claiming Beth, but I also see as Beth's guilt materializing as Owen, his memory basically haunting her. Beth is just desperate, trying to find explanations, trying to find all of the things she didn't know about her own husband, the person she was supposed to know the best. And so, during this journey of finding and discovering, she almost lost herself because guilt is a very powerful emotion. And like I said, it's not rare for someone to lose themselves through this journey. The Night House is another movie who uses horror to talk about grief, and it still amazes me just how well you can use horror to express the grieving process or lack of it in this case. And I think that also in this search, in this journey that Beth goes through, she was also not ready to let go. I truly believe that she was looking for reasons to try to hold on to Owen, and that's why she also got obsessed with this search. In some way, trying to discover new things about him can make you feel like you're still connected to that person, that this person is not done in this world, that there is more to them still, and you need to find that out. And I mean, losing someone is always hard, but I really think that losing someone through exiting by themselves can be one of the hardest ways you can lose someone, because that sensation of I could have done something to prevent this will always linger. And as we see with Claire at the end of the story, she picked up something was wrong and she avoided Beth exiting this world by herself as well, because obviously in the movie we see that it is this entity who is tricking Beth into harming herself. But in the truth, it was just like Beth not being able to handle her guilt and her grief anymore. But thankfully, Claire saw the signs and she was there right on time. Trying to get through a tough time can literally feel like a nightmare, can it? Another thing worth mentioning in this movie is the cinematography. It was really creative. Those seamless cuts between Beth's dreams and reality were nice, and while I am not a fan of jump scares, they were well made. Also, the presence of the shadow man sneaking around the house was always there, and that's another detail that I love. Playing with shadows to create figures is a nice addition, because I feel like one of the scariest things about seeing shadows is that you don't know if that's a real person or something else, and it's just creepy, it is scary. Overall, I really like The Night House. I think it was a fine story, not so much scary as it was intriguing, but it kept me entertained nonetheless.